Okay, seems to be.
All good? All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to Plant-Based Pittsburgh gathering today. They usually meet in this area on the second Saturday of the month during the winter time, and then during the spring, well, later spring, summer, and early fall.
Right.
They flip. No, in the wintertime they flip to the evening time. So anyway, at the library, yes.
And the
So
library is
we're
under
here for
construction.
today because they're under construction. So we just moved from the community library to this library, this church. So anyway, I am so glad to have everyone join us today, both here in person as well as online. And my name is Karen Webster, and I am the executive director of Healthy Seminarians, Healthy Church, which is a nonprofit that my husband and I co-founded. And I'll tell you about that in just a second. But in terms of what we're going to be doing today, first of all, am I projecting enough, or do I need to speak louder? Okay, speak louder? Okay. I'm going to first give you a brief introduction. Then I'm going to walk you through how to prepare some healthier Super Bowl party foods, or really anytime. So for those of you who may not necessarily be all that concerned about football, they're any kind of party. And then I will pause though throughout the conversation with y'all for questions. So we'll do that. And then we'll also have an opportunity for those of you who are here in person to sample some of the things that I've been talking about. So that is the game plan for today. How does that sound? Good? All right. And then also as at pausing for questions, that also means that folks joining us online, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box and we'll have someone read them to me. So I welcome you as well. So in terms of my plant-based journey, some of those who've come here before have heard about it. So basically it started in 8th grade. And first I was concerned about individual and environmental concerns about my physical health, as well as started learning about the destruction of the rainforest for the cattle industry. And I thought that was not okay. And then when I was in high school, started moving also to considering the implication it had on my community, reading such books as like The Jungle and the meat packing industry. And I thought, I don't know about that. Then when I was in college, started seeing the connection between the food choices I make and how that implicates the world around me, and how that then ties into my faith. And so for me, eating plant-based is a way of loving God, neighbor, and self. And so that has been my journey. And my husband, who might be joining us shortly, actually has a very similar story. Although I was born and raised in California, he was born and raised in South Carolina, we have similar stories. And in terms of my vocational background, I wear several different hats. One is an exercise physiology. And then I also have, I'm certified as a nutrition specialist and a Whole Foods integrated specialist. I am not a registered dietitian, but I work with one. I also am a health and wellness coach and an ordained Presbyterian pastor. And again, co-founder of the nonprofit that my husband and I co-founded. And the mission of Healthy Seminarians, Healthy Church is to bring about greater well-being among those who are attending theological schools, clergy, community of faith members, as well as anybody who is interested in attending to their health and the health of the world around them. And one of the core values of our organizations is that when we do events, whether it's workshops, speaking at conferences, other things like that, is one of our values, though, is a whole food plant-based lifestyle. And also, so this is something that we're deeply passionate about. And as a disclaimer, I have no sponsorship. I have no affiliation, which means, so therefore, if I talk about any product here, no, none. So this is just Karen's personal opinion. And then outside of work, my passion is really for gardening. I love. It's a love-hate relationship, but I also love plant-based cooking and baking, and then spending as much time as I can outside. Even at this time of year, we get out. And so that's kind of a little bit about me. And then I know there's some folks here you know, we all come to this conversation from different places. And I know that one of the things that a lot of people more recently have started asking is first trying to understand what is vegan, what is whole foods, plant-based, what's the difference. And so I just thought, even though I'll be talking about this kind of stuff, I thought that that might also just be helpful. So for some people who that language might be kind of new. So one of the things to think about is, so when you hear the word vegan, that means folks who are refraining from meat and dairy, honey. Also from a lot of times that also includes not wearing leather. So the thing is that veganism is rooted more like in a philosophy and a way of like in a way of life. They also will refrain from, like, say, like wool, silk, anything that's destructive to or tested on animals. And so one of the things about being a vegan, though, is that you can actually be 100% vegan, but you could be eating a whole bunch of highly processed foods. So you could actually be a junk food vegan. So for instance, French fries, sugary soda, say like the little Swedish fish candy, the highly processed meat alternatives. I mean, again, those are not particularly healthy. So they're not testing on animals. They're not animal products, but they're not necessarily the healthiest food choices. So then when you hear the language whole food, plant-based, that's rooted more in thinking about eating foods in the whole food, plant-based as you can. And that comes more a lot of times from people's more thinking about like their physical health. And that's kind of the directions a lot of times people come to it. And so not only are people, you know, refraining from meat and dairy, but they also are focused on eating, you know, whole foods as much as possible, trying to stay away from highly processed foods, white flour, you know, stuff like that. Or when you look at ingredients on the list and there's 5,000 ingredients, trying to have as many ingredients you can recognize, and the fewer ingredients, the better. They also, a lot of times folks will refrain from refined oils, even olive oil. And that's because so many times, you know, oil is highly processed. And it also, in that processing, reduces its nutrients, as well as it's also very calorically dense. So a lot of times folks who are on whole food plant-based will try to keep their oils down. Also too, a lot of times folks who are seeking to be whole food plant-based also very mindful of sugar intake, particularly normal everyday sugar. So sometimes, you know, for sweeteners, they will use alternatives, maple syrup, date syrup. That's not to say that they're not calorically dense, but there is some more nutrients in that than just flat, you know, everyday sugar. And then also folks too sometimes also are mindful of their salt intake and being mindful of that. So that's, and then so you can also have, so you have vegan, then you have whole food plant-based, but then you can also have vegans who are whole food plant-based. So then what happens is it's a blending of, you're concerned about your individual health and well-being, tied in though with the bigger perspective of how are your food choices and impacting both you and the world around you. So that's just kind of a quick overview of that. Is that any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, well, why do they not use honey?
Because it impacts the bees. Because bees get destroyed in the process of harvesting, and it's destructive. Yeah. So sometimes though people will claim, or they'll say that they're vegan, but they eat honey. Honey is kind of a moving target with some folks. So that's why, but yeah. And then one other thing too, was there any other questions? Okay. In terms of what I'm going to be showing today, there is all different kinds of healthier Super Bowl party foods out there, because obviously, you know, Super Bowl has plenty of food options. But what I decided to focus on today was some of the, what I would say, kind of common party foods that tend to be focused more on the dairy intense kind of things, because I know a lot of times when people are trying to transition to eating more vegan or whole food plant-based, dairy a lot of times is sort of the sticking point. So I thought I would try to show some things that would be generally more dairy focused. So that's how I chose what I did. And then the other thing too, is that all of this, is completely new to you. I'll be talking about a couple recipes where, say originally I took it from being a regular recipe that had a fair amount of dairy into it. And earlier in my journey, I veganized it. Then after that, I then made it whole food plant-based. And so wherever you are, you don't have to make huge radical changes overnight, just even small little, changes day by day. I know someone right now in their family, they're looking right now, it started at the beginning of the year, they're doing dairy-free Tuesday. That's what they're doing. And that was the step that they wanted to make in their journey. So again, nothing is ever too small. You don't have to change overnight, but just small steps over time makes the journey both doable and I think fun. So the first recipe I'm going to talk about is a nacho cheese / queso. And again, I didn't want to, it's almost impossible to make all these dishes. Plus, that's really loud. So what I'm going to do is talk about a couple of recipes. So the first one is the queso, and you'll have, for those of you who are here, will have a chance to be able to taste it. What's going to happen is in either, you can eat, some people call it Vita, some people call it Vitamixer, or you can do it in a food processor or a blender. You're going to take 2 cups of potato and a cup of carrots that's been chopped up and it's been cooked in a pot on your stovetop or in the microwave to soften them for about 10 minutes. And I can already see people's faces going, I gotta tell you, the very first time someone told me about this recipe, I thought, no, I don't think so. And I tried it and I was very surprised. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh boy, she's crazy, I thought that myself. So anyway, so it's going to be a couple of cups of the potatoes and the carrots that's been cooked either on the stovetop in the microwave, because sometimes folks prefer one or the other. And I usually let it cool for a little bit, and I put those in the Vitamixer. And then what we're going to do is we'll add about 3/4 of a cup of water. And I usually use the water that I steamed the potato and carrot. I put that in there. Then you're going to put in a tablespoon of lemon juice. Then you're going to put in 1/2 cup of nutritional yeast. And for those of you who are not familiar with that, it's a really nice cheese alternative, and you can get it at the Giant Eagle. Now, of course, there are other places to get it that's less expensive, but just know that's readily available, and it's generally, I usually buy mine online in bulk. So I actually can't tell you exactly what section it's in. I think it might be in the baking section.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's around there.
Yeah. But yeah, so it gives a nice kind of cheesy flavor. So then you do that. Then what you're going to do is you'll put in a little bit of salt, and then I have a little bit of garlic powder, onion powder, and a little bit of smoked paprika. And then all you do, blend it for a minute, poof, you got nacho sauce.
Oh.
And so then just so you can see what the finished product looks like, is it looks like that for those of you who are here.
Oh, wow.
And so you can see it's gelatinous, it's thick. And the wonderful thing about it is it's better slightly warm. So today, for those of you who are here, are going to get more room temperature. Like I said, I find it a little bit better when it's a little bit warmer. But the thing that's great about it is you can use this in a 7-layer dip, which often is a Super Bowl party food. And so that's one of the layers there. And when I send out the recipe, I am going to send out a link to one of the 7-layer dips that I like. And the thing is that I kind of always laugh at them because they'll say like, now put the layers in this order. You can put in whatever layer or order you want. Although the olives and the green onions, I put at the top. So the bottom layer is refried beans. Then I put the queso. Then I did the guacamole. Then I did a sunflower seed sour cream alternative. And I chose to do that because you can actually do sour cream via sunflower seeds, tofu, cashew, And the thing is that I always like to be able to have any of those options based on people's dietary preferences or needs. And so, for instance, when I have a group like this, I usually try to make sure that at least 2 out of my 3 things don't have any kind of, nuts in it for nut sensitivity. And then I also today made sure that everything doesn't contain gluten for any gluten sensitivity. And then salsa, like I said, olives and green onions. So in terms though of the 7-layer dip, so the hardest thing of making the 7 layers was the few minutes that I made the queso. So I wanted to also show that in making the 7-layer dip, it really doesn't look much different than your normal 7-layer dip. So I actually brought in the can. It's the vegetarian El Paso. And so it is already oil. This actually contains less oil than the organic refried beans.
Wow.
So again, you want organic, you eat oil. You want less oil and you want it cheaper, you have that. So there's that. And then also you can either make your own guacamole or even like all these other, you can just buy the guacamole. And this was also whole food, plant-based, no sugar, no oil. And then also, this was a Nature's Basket. Oh, that's Giant Eagle. This is also whole food, plant-based, and then olives and green onions. So again, so the 2 things I made were the queso and the sunflower sour cream. And just to tell you how I made the sunflower sour cream is I had a cup of sunflower seeds, soaked them overnight. Sometimes I'll say like 30 minutes, but I just do it overnight because that's just easier. Soak them in water. Now, I would not soak the 1 cup in this size. I just did this to bring it here. You want it actually a slightly bigger because they do swell. But anyway, so you're going to put a cup of sunflowers in there. And then you're going to have, this I have to remember off the top of my head. Yeah, tablespoon lemon juice. You have tablespoon apple cider vinegar, a little bit of water. Poof, you got sour cream.
Wow.
So it's really easy. And one of the things too is that everything that I've made or what I'm talking about today, all of this stuff can be made and then put in the freezer. So for instance, I made extra queso today because I wanted some for this, but also for me to make a little extra so that my husband and I can use it later. Same thing with like the sour cream is a lot of times I only need a little bit. Well, I might make a single or a double batch and use some of it later. Because the thing is if you use this, it's fantastic. I don't like having to get the stuff out of here. It drives me crazy. Now also that does remind me that if you do not have a mixer like this, you can use a food processor, you can use a blender, you can also use an immersion blender. The only difference is it may not be quite as smooth as using one of these, but don't feel like I can't do any of this because I don't have this. So I, for years, did not have one of these. And I made all of this stuff. And sometimes I don't want to deal with cleaning this thing out. So I will use my immersion blender knowing that if I'm just making it for myself, I don't care if it's not quite as smooth. This is much easier to clean. Actually, the cleaning part of a mixer like this is actually not that hard. It's like I said, if you have something that's kind of thick, it's hard to get the stuff out into the, and so if you are doing that, I have found the combination of the long spoon to get it out, and then my special little, that gets it out. To actually clean this thing though, all you have to do is put a little bit of dishwasher soap in there, half a thing of water, put that on there, stick this on top, blend it for 30 seconds, it pops up, it cleans it. So actually the cleaning of it, I mean, you rinse it out too. The cleaning of it actually is not hard. It's just, like I said, getting the stuff out makes me go crazy. So anyway, that is the queso nacho sauce. And you can also use this sauce if you take out the smoked paprika, although you could keep it in there. If you're wanting to make a plant-based mac and cheese using, you know, like whole wheat pasta or something. I mean, you can use this queso sauce for all different kinds of things. So again, no nuts, no gluten, no seeds, no soy. So if there's any of the top allergens, that's pretty neutral. So any questions about that?
So the sour cream turns white?
It does. It's crazy. It does.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna save some of it, but then I ended up wanting to make sure I had enough. You can see it.
I see it in there.
Yeah.
And that's
So, yeah.
what you made, right?
Yeah. So if you see that white layer on there,
Yeah.
that's the sunflower.
Hmm.
Sunflower seeds turn white, just like the cashews. When you make the cashew based sour cream, also turns white. It's magic. Yeah. Any other questions about the queso or the 7
The
layers?
sour cream, how long is it good for in the fridge?
Well-
Before you should freeze it.
They usually say like up to about up to, you know, like 3 or 4 days. Or people usually on blog are pretty like err on the side of like the safe side. I pushed it to 7 days, no problem. The thing is it usually lets you know when you don't want to eat it. It usually starts turning a little pink. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I'd say up to about a week. But then like I said, I tend to just, if I know if I'm not going to use it, I'll just go ahead and put it in the freezer. And the other thing too is like if you know that you're only going to be using a small amount, you can kind of freeze it in the quantities that you normally might pull from the freezer, like 8 ounces. Or if you know you're going to be doing 2 ounces, you can put those in the ice cube trays, stuff like that. Yeah. Any other questions about the queso and 7 layers? Yeah.
I've been reading online about these spices, like just pepper, paprika and things that have a lot of germs in them, like E. coli and things. Do you use any particular spices to make sure that your product is like, do you go to like Burlap and Barrel or any of these like higher end spices rather than like they say McCormick's have like E. coli and everything else in there? You know, you're making a healthy product and then you put a spice like pepper is contaminated
Yeah.
because we never cook some of this. We never, what do you think?
So it's complicated. Because not only do you have concerns about that, but then you also have to, if you've been reading about some of the spices, concerns about lead and cadmium levels. So then you're really trying to do the best you can with what you got. So for instance, when I am buying products, for instance, I know that the Vietnamese cinnamon that I like, the one that has the least amount of lead in it happens to be the one from Whole Foods. You know, so the thing is every spice is like there isn't like one set brand that I know of that's absolutely 100% fantastic. So I just try to research when I can. I do. Did you have some? Oh, okay. I know like so some of my products though come from Frontier. As one of the brands, but I buy like my onion powder and my garlic powder. I buy like that in bulk, like 1 pound bags. Some of my spices that I don't need as much of, I will buy from the co-op, East End Co-op in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Someone online wants to know how much nutritional yeast is in the recipe.
So there was for the queso.
I believe so.
Yeah, half cup. Yeah. And again, yeah, we'll send out all the recipes with more of the quantities. So yeah, so that's why it is kind of complicated. And then I know, for instance, some of the spices though, because I do like gardening, I grow in my backyard. So then I know where they come from.
Right.
So for instance, my dill that I'll be showing, my dill came from my backyard, my parsley, my basil, my thyme, or sage, rosemary. That's all coming from my backyard.
Yeah,
But yeah.
they can't.
But yes, but if you can't, you're not growing in your backyard again, just every spice is gonna have, different things going on. So that, to me, there isn't a real easy answer. Does anybody have an easy answer on that one?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of that. Like cinnamon has lead in it.
Yeah.
Because if I'm doing a shake, I'll put cinnamon in it and everything. And
Yeah.
so are they saying, are these like a trace amount that passes?
No.
Oh, no, no.
No.
They're high amounts.
High amounts.
And actually, I know that so Sally's the one who oversees the plant-based Pittsburgh. She, in her articles has stuff that shows some of the like that. Also, chocolate industry, same kind of problem.
Yes.
There's a
Right.
ton of
Right.
cadmium and lead in the chocolate. So you have to, again, with chocolate, so you want to find out what companies, at least, for us, is trying to match, trying to be organic, fair trade, least amount of cadmium, least amount of lead. It gets complicated.
Where is the lead
Yeah,
coming
I was
from?
gonna ask
The
that.
ground,
From the soil.
the soil.
From the soil.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, they were saying that online about the small farm and then the constant testing, where like McCormick's or some of these other brands that you see mostly on the shelf
Mhm.
are not tested, and like they have, when they are tested, they have like all this, whether it be E. coli or lead or poison, what we call poison, and we don't cook it out.
Yeah.
We just put it in,
Yeah.
so that's what my concern was.
Yeah. No, like I said, it's complicated. Yeah. But the thing is at least if you move towards eating more whole food plant-based, then you're at least filling your body with a bunch of nutrients to offset a lot of the challenges, toxins, things that we have in and around us every day in our air, in our water, in our food. So yeah, so there's a shiny bright star in all of it.
One more thing to be aware of.
Yes, exactly. All right, so then the next thing I was going to talk about was how to make the classic spinach dip.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can't have a Super Bowl party without the spinach dip, or at least I know, like in my family too, New Year's, they always had spinach dip at the New Year's party. And so the classic recipe usually consists of the mayo and the sour cream. You get your Knorr's spice packet. Yeah, you follow the directions there. So you take those things, you put them in the bowl, then you add the spice packet, then you get your water chestnuts. You gotta have your water chestnuts. Oh, yeah, right here.
Never made that.
Yeah.
And now, of course, too, like you can get them already diced for you, so there's no need to dice them because they're diced for you. Then you also get your chopped spinach, and you mix that all up, and then you add a little bit of green onion, and poof, you got your spinach dip. So that would be like the classic recipe. Then to step it towards being a vegan recipe is that you could basically follow the recipe, but where it says mayo, you can use a plant-based mayo, or the sour cream could be a plant-based sour cream. However, the thing with the vegan products is that they are usually quite high in the oils, and so and other stuff. So if you want to make the spinach dip whole food plant-based, instead of the mayo, again, you have three different, well, in my world, you have three different options. Well, there's more than that, but the ones I use, you can either, for the mayo, be a tofu based or a white bean based, or you can also do the cashew based. And if you were making the white bean base, again, just to show you how uncomplicated it is, I have my white beans, and then I have, you'll notice a trend, lemon juice, a little bit of salt, then you have a little bit of the Dijon, then you have a little bit of organic miso, and you can get that. That's not usually at the Giant Eagle. I usually go to an Asian market to get it, but you can get it at like Whole Foods in Pittsburgh. And then I usually get the white miso. I like it's a little bit more mild flavor. It also, for those who have a gluten sensitivity, usually does not have gluten in it, but it is soy based. And then again, the other couple things that you can put in there if you want a little bit of onion, just a touch, like a quarter of a teaspoon of onion powder and garlic powder. And actually both of those, if you're looking at them and you might sit there thinking to yourself, that's actually not onion powder. So I actually prefer using the minced onion. One of the reasons why I like it is that it doesn't clump. So, but if you use, you have to change the recipe a little bit, because the minced onion doesn't have as much, the flavor is not quite as strong as the onion powder. So you just have to adjust your recipes a little bit, and you can look at the little conversions online if you want. I also usually use garlic granules because again, they don't stick. But the thing is, like my husband and I, we love onions and garlic so much that I'm always going to err on the side of too much for the two of us. General population, I cut it back down. But anyway, you just stick all that in the blender. You got your white bean mayo. So I will say though, so the white bean mayo is pretty thick. And the one thing that's really great about it is nutrient rich. Whereas regular mayo is just full of calories that's coming from the fat. So when you're doing the beans, you're getting the protein from the beans. It also, like I said, it's not going to taste exactly like mayo, but it's going to fill out, like for the spinach dip, I find it to be a really nice replacement for the mayo. And again, that freezes well. If you're trying to use a mayo in a setting like you're wanting to have, you know, when I think of like the summertime and I'm growing on tomatoes and I want my tomato sandwich with my mayo, then I would go more the route of the tofu based mayo, because it's got more the mouthfeel of the mayo. Whereas the bean one, you can tell, like you're not going to fool anybody and say, oh yeah, that's mayo. No, the tofu one, you're also not going to fool anybody, but I like it as a nice alternative to it. And then in terms for the spinach recipe, the other thing that I do, again, you can do for the sour cream, you can do the sunflower seed, like I suggested, you can do, and I showed you that for the 7-layer dip, but you can also do a cashew cream. And so again, it would be a cup of the cashews, again, soaked overnight, again, in a bigger container, not this size. And then to make the cashew cream, any guesses what might also go?
Lemon.
Ding, ding, ding. And yeah, we got a little bit of water. All right. Yeah, we got sour cream. Now, one of the things I actually discovered, I wanted to see how it worked out last night, because again, I'm always learning. So when making the spinach dip, if you want to cut a corner and you're following my recipe, if you follow the links for the white bean mayo and the cashew sour cream, if you follow those links, you can put all the ingredients at one time in here, and it will give you approximately the right amount. So that way you don't have to make the sour cream and then make the mayo. Oh, no, you do it all at once.
Oh.
So that way you don't have to clean it out twice. So now again, it's going to be slightly more bean and like, you know, a little bit more than you need. So you can add a little bit more, you know, like the seasonings and stuff if you feel like it's a little bit too much. I mean, because it was probably about a quarter cup more than you needed. But in my world, I was like, that's close enough. I mean, I don't ever really actually follow recipes to a T. For me, they're mostly just kind of suggestions and kind of guiding me in the right direction. So that's again how you take your standard. Oh, actually, I'm gonna rewind. So that's how you replace the mayo. But if you also want to replace the actual package of the Knorr seasoning, to do that, what you're going to do is take a half a cup of finely grated carrot and a half a cup of onion that's just nicely minced. And you'll just put that in a bowl, the lid, in the microwave for about 2 minutes. And then while you're doing some other things, you let that cool. Then you'll add all the other ingredients. And then the thing though, so the other ingredients being the sour cream, the mayo, your traditional things, you know, like the spinach, the water. Again, more nutritional yeast. And then if you don't have a gluten sensitivity, you can use a teaspoon of Marmite, which is actually, since my husband and I don't have a gluten sensitivity for this dip, I like that. However, if you do have a gluten sensitivity, you can use the organic white miso either one of those. Then you will use a teaspoon of soy sauce, or in this instance, I use tamari to make it so again, it would be gluten-free for anybody who is tasting today. And a little bit of garlic powder, a pinch of salt, you're good to go. So that's how you make the spinach dip.
Would you need salt if you have all that salt?
You, again, it's, and you may not want the pinch of salt. So people have different salt preferences. So yeah, that's up to the individual, whether or not you want the salt or not. But yeah, so that is how you make the spinach dip. So it's the carrots and the onions, your spinach, your garlic. And then actually one other thing, just like the regular one, you have the green onion, which I did not mention. So, but everything else is all the same. So that is how you make the spinach dip. You need any questions about that?
Do you just make spinach, whatever it says on the package, and then
Okay.
add it?
Okay, so one thing, what I will say, a couple things I can already see is I have my bowl. And after I've let my carrots and my onions cool, like I'll add that to the bowl. Then actually one of the secrets about the spinach that my father-in-law taught me is that when you have the spinach, you want to squeeze all that water out. No, like you see, you gotta squeeze and squeeze and squeeze out all the water. Then I put that in the bowl. Then I go ahead and I put in the garlic. So this is my bowl. Then I go ahead and put in the water chestnuts. And I put in the plant-based
Okay.
mayo, the plant-based sour cream. I put in my nutritional yeast, my Marmite or my miso. There we go. No potato. And then again, a little bit of the soy sauce, a little bit of garlic powder, and a dash of lemon juice if you want to. But yeah, that is how you make your and you just, it's all in the bowl. You just stir it, and then you let it sit overnight for the flavors to marinate.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were in a hurry, you certainly can make it right before you serve. But it's easy. Yeah.
Is it healthier with the beans, like, if you get dried, chickpeas
Mhm.
compared to the canned, like, and just cook them? I mean, is that just healthier? You keep more of the nutrients that way, or?
So it's not necessarily healthier in that, because the thing is like you're cooking it yourself, but then when you cook it, it loses some of the nutrients just through the cooking process no matter what. And then with the beans and stuff, the thing is if you cook it yourself, generally speaking, it is going to be cheaper to buy it. But it's also not going to have any added salts. A lot of times prepared beans have added salts. There's also, you don't have any of the actual materials that's going into containing it. So it's, from those standpoints, that's healthier. However, if you're tight on time, I generally, we pretty much always do most of our beans from dry. Absolutely. But I always have a couple of beans in the pantry just in case I don't have time. Although also when I cook my beans, I always, again, just like with these sour creams and all that kind of stuff, I always make more than I need. So that I always have whatever beans I want in the freezer. So then that way, that's like going to my pantry to get my can of beans. I pull out, and I usually in the containers, I put them in the freezer. It will say, is it 1 cup? Is it 2 cups? So then that way I know. But yeah, so that's why from a healthier standpoint, it is healthier from the standpoint of not the salt and not some of the other added ingredients in it, and not having the impact of the shipping costs, the cost of making the can to hold it, because usually when you buy beans, you can buy them in bulk and it's, so that's healthier too. Yeah.
Do you ever use the bean water, like with the cashews to make it mayo?
To do like more of the aquafaba?
Yeah.
I do not. You certainly can. Like the world of aquafaba, again, is a hit or miss.
Yeah.
So some people are advocates of aquafaba because it can make, does people know about aquafaba?
No.
So if you have a can of chickpeas or some of the other beans, people will save the liquid that's left over from the beans, and it has an uncanny ability, and that was not a pun. No pun there. No pun there. Uncanny ability as the sunflower seeds, and that you have this kind of gelatinous, kind of clearish kind of liquid, and you put it in an immersion blender, and poof, it's got this beautiful looking meringue.
Hmm.
So that, I mean, it's certainly an option. There's some people who don't really like the idea of using the aquafaba, in part, particularly for those who have digestive issues,
Mm.
because it basically, the aquafaba has a lot of the gases that it release from the beans, and so for some people there is like a gassy way about it. So I mean, I have read all of the good as well as the bad about whether or not to use aquafaba, but yes, one certainly can. Yeah. Any other questions about the spinach? Yeah.
You can also freeze, I freeze the
Mhm.
aquafaba in
Yes.
ice cube trays.
Mhm.
Oh,
And then
Yeah.
just pop it out and put it
Yeah.
in a Ziploc
Mhm.
bag. When I make granola and you want the spices to adhere to the oats and the cinnamon and the nuts, I mix aquafaba in with it.
oh.
And it kind of coats everything. It
Yeah.
coats the grains and the nuts and the raisins. And I bake my granola that way.
Yeah,
So-
that's how you can get it to stick without
I've
using
never made
oil.
meringues though. I've always.
Oh, it's
you need-
quite.
You need a ton of sugar.
Yes, you do, but it's more a like, to me, it's just the magic of like the chemistry of how, like, how does that happen? It's really cool, but yeah.
Meringue, do you bake it then, like?
It takes a while to whip it up. You
It
have to-
does.
You have to whip for a long time.
Mhm. Yeah, but you can do it.
Then slowly add the sugar and the vanilla and
Okay.
keep on whipping.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can find it online.
And you can
Yeah.
find, yes, the how
Yeah,
to doing
recipe.
aquafaba
Mhm.
online.
Karen, what is that little jar with the yellow lid, but what is it?
Oh.
Marmite.
Marmite.
Yeah, what is that?
So the ingredients in Marmite is actually yeast extract, and it's salt, carrot, onion juice.
Interesting.
And so the thing is that Marmite is a common product, say in the UK. And in Australia, they have Vegemite. And so say for instance, they'll have a piece of bread and they will take some of this and they'll put it on their bread, and that's breakfast.
Wow.
It's pretty salty.
Mhm.
So it's for those who are not salt adverse, it is interesting. I actually, when I was living in Albania for a summer, they had a big jar of Vegemite and I had limited access to food while I was there. And so in the morning, we would have bread with Vegemite on it. So it grew on me. It wasn't my first, like, I would never have thought of doing that, but yeah. So but it is, like I said, you can also use it as a replacement sometimes for like Worcestershire sauce, which is not plant-based. You can also use it, say, for instance, if you're trying to add more richness to something, it's kind of a soup bouillon of sorts.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's got a fairly long shelf life because it is salty. But it is relatively expensive, and I honestly, we don't go through it very fast because a little goes a long way. So if you're only using a quarter or a half a teaspoon at any given time, that lasts you a while. But last I knew it was like $8 or $9. That you probably would not be buying at a Giant Eagle. But maybe you are. Again, I haven't had to buy it anytime recently. But yeah, thank you for asking. Any other questions about what I've shared thus far? Okay, so the last recipe I was going to share with you is the ranch dressing, because everything is good with
Yes.
ranch.
Mhm.
So with the ranch dressing, what you're gonna do is, again, you can have a mixer, blender, food processor, immersion blender. And the recipe calls for silken tofu, and you'll put that in your mixer. Now, the thing is in, say, this particular recipe, it calls for silken tofu. However, you do not need to use silken tofu. What you can do is actually get extra firm tofu or firm tofu and just add a little extra water. And the reason why I actually don't use silken tofu very often is that right now, say for instance, again, no affiliations to anybody, the silken tofu is on sale right now for $3.50 a container at Giant Eagle. I think it regularly runs at like $3.99. You go to Aldi's, you can get tofu for $1.55 a container. So you can get more than 2 containers of extra firm tofu from Aldi's for less than one of these. So some recipes though, when they call for silken tofu, you gotta go with it. But like again, it's, how are you gonna know? Experimentation. So you can use extra firm in this particular recipe, especially if you have a high powered mixer. Otherwise it will be a little bit more gritty, not as smooth if you don't use the silken. Yeah.
Do you still drain the water for that?
So the silken one doesn't really have much water
Oh.
that comes off of it. And when I'm using the extra firm, I tend to just put some of the extra water that came with the tofu in there as the
Okay.
extra water. Yeah. And then what you're gonna do is you'll add, if you're using the extra firm, you'll add a little bit of water. Then you're going to use 2.5 tablespoons of sunflower seeds that have been soaked for about a half an hour or more. And again, I will, knowing in advance, I'll usually just do it the night before and stick it in the fridge, come back. But I mean, you could, like I said, it's only a half an hour. So if you're doing other things, you can simply do that. So you have the sunflower seeds, and then you have the apple cider vinegar. Then you have the nutritional yeast. Again, you're seeing patterns here. And so the thing is that actually a lot of these things don't require a whole bunch of different kinds of ingredients. However, it may not necessarily be the ingredients that you normally have in your pantry. But once you start making more of these things, there's overlap that you use them over and over and over and over again. Then it calls for a couple of cloves of garlic, or you can use garlic powder, granule garlic. Quite frankly, actually, when I'm usually making this kind of stuff, I just go with the granules. I love fresh garlic, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood. I'm not in the mood to peel it. No. So I'll use that. And then we'll use 2 teaspoons of the miso. And then you're going to use, this recipe actually calls for 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper, which I even say in the recipe, that sounds like a lot. And when I first saw that, I said, I don't know about that one. That might be a typo. No, actually, ranch actually has a lot of black pepper in it. And like we use a pretty like potent black pepper, and it wasn't too much. So again, feel free if you do it to err on the side of like, I don't know about that. But I actually was really surprised at how like it actually worked. And then you'll use 1 teaspoon of dried parsley and 1 teaspoon of dill. You can use fresh in season. I just know a lot of times when I'm in the summertime, again, I grow a lot of my herbs, I'll chop it, hang it, dry it. And then a lot of times, even though fresh is certainly more flavorful, I just know that pulling my dried sometimes is just easier. But yeah, so you can use either fresh or dried. That's totally fine. And then again, if you want a pinch of salt or not, you can. But yeah, you just stick it in there. Poof, 1 minute, you got ranch dressing. And so for those of you who are here, you'll have a chance to try it. But that's what your ranch dressing looks like.
Oh, wow. I bet a lot.
Yeah, that's one recipe worth. And again, all these recipes, they freeze well. So a lot of times, my husband and I will, like this recipe here, basically are like the 12-ounce. It will fill like most of one of these and a little bit of an 8-ouncer. So a lot of times what I do is, so when I say the 8-ouncers, like, this size, I'll fill up one of these with it, and then whatever's left in here, and then I stick this one labeled in the freezer, because sometimes when I go on my little archaeological dig in the freezer, sometimes I think to myself, I don't remember what that is. And you don't remember, is it cashew cream? Is it the white bean? Is it the sunflower? So I label it, stick it in the freezer, and then say that the following week I can just pull it out. I don't have to make it. So there's some Sundays or Saturdays where I go on my dressing and sauces kick. I make a whole bunch, and then I stick some of them in the freezer, and then that way I don't have to make it for several weeks. Yeah.
Can you put those in the freezer?
Which?
Those little glass containers?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. These are some of my most favorite cooking item you can possibly have in your house. You should see our refrigerator. I mean, it's stacked with mason jars. Because the thing that's beautiful about mason jars is that, so you can either, maybe you can have an 8 ounce, you can have a 12 ounce. We also then have the 4 cup, so the quart, and we actually also have the 8 cup, because what happens is, what I like about them is that they, for instance, when we make a big pot of soup and we're gonna be eating off it all week, I like the 8 cup, because then it's tall, it doesn't spread out in the refrigerator,
Yeah.
so it works. And then, of course, you see the stackability. I also like that. The other thing too is that with the glass, it's glass, it's not plastic. And, you know, trying to also be mindful of not having too much plastic in our lives. The other thing too is that the containers like this, you put them in the freezer, and again, when you put them in the freezer, you always want to leave slightly loose. You never want to lock it down, because if you do that, you can crack your jars. So just slightly twist, put in the freezer, and then say, for instance, if you were to put like a soup and say like this size, and you put it in your freezer, well, then you say you bring it out the next day, you can put it in your fridge, and then that later that evening you wanted to have it for dinner, you just take off the lid, stick it in the microwave. You got dinner. It's already in the, it's your to-go container. Yeah, these things are great.
I don't know why it's already cracked in the freezer.
You have to leave.
You have
You
to
have
leave
to
an
leave
airspace.
headspace.
Yeah, the courts, and especially the ones with the shoulders, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so for instance, like on this size, this 12 ounce, I never go above here.
okay.
Same thing with like that. You, like I said, you want to leave, you gotta leave that space, and you also don't want to lock it down. Always just a slight twist. Once it's frozen, you can put the lid on.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is, we love this for traveling. I will say though, if you go with the plastic lids, because sometimes I do have plastic lids still, because we also make a lot of pickles, and the pickles erodes the metal.
Yeah.
And so again, we're not, you know, actively touching the plastic, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you do have plastic and you put something in here and you take it with you somewhere, these ones, they're getting better. Like this particular type, they do leak. Whereas the metal ones don't leak. Some of the newer plastic ones don't leak, but I'm just letting you know. Just know if it leaks or not, because you don't want it to be turned sideways in something thinking it wasn't gonna leak. I'm more apt to put something like coffee in something with like a lid like this and had it like just spill all over my cooler. Yeah, so I've learned the hard way. But yeah, these are, like I said, these are my favorite cooking containers for everything. Yeah.
Where's the closest Asian store?
So the closest one technically I would say is Monroeville, but it's very tiny, very small selection.
What's it called?
That I don't remember. Down 22 on the right,
Yeah,
past Aldi's.
it's near Elmer's.
Yeah.
Aquarium.
Yes.
Okay.
And so they have a small selection of stuff.
Did they close? She thinks they closed.
Did they close? Okay, I tried a couple times there and it didn't work out very well for me. There is actually several in Pittsburgh. One of the ones that I like now that just opened up recently, for those of you here in the Pittsburgh area, sorry for anybody online who's not here in this area. It's called, I think, Mini Market. It's over by the Strip. That just opened a couple of months ago, and it's got a phenomenal selection of all the different kinds of Asian groups. It's a really great one. Lotus on the Strip. They've got some stuff as well. But mini markets, more markets, market more.
Many more.
There,
M-A-N-Y.
many more?
Many more.
Okay. And there's also one that opened up right near the co-op. That one also just opened up. I have not been to that one yet, because I just found this mini more and I like that one. So I'm a creature had it. Yeah.
The co-op on Penn Avenue.
Yes.
So there is now a new Asian grocery store that opened up right near it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like almost across the street.
Yeah, I
A
just
couple.
want to make sure there's that, I didn't know if there's more than.
Yeah,
one.
there's only one co-op in
Me.
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Patel Brothers. is
I was
pretty
just
good.
gonna say.
And Patel, I mean, Patel has good Indian
spices.
stuff.
Yeah,
So if you're looking for Indian, Patel's works, but if you're looking for Chinese, Japanese,
Yeah.
Thai, Philippine, all that kind of stuff, you gotta go to some of the other folks.
There is a market in Squirrel Hill.
Okay.
I don't know if it's still there.
Okay.
I don't know what street it's perpendicular to Murray Avenue,
Okay,
and it's right at the corner.
Forbes,
I think it's Haverford.
okay,
If it's the one I'm thinking of.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so those are a couple of Asian markets. But yeah, no, when I found the mini more, I was like, oh, because I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so I was used to having a really fantastic
Oh, yeah.
Asian selection of food. So when that one opened up, I was very excited. So that was that is a spinach dip. I want to make sure I didn't forget anything else I was going to tell you about the spinach dip.
I think you can freeze some of the sauce.
Let me see.
You have to whip them up again, you're gonna blend them again.
Yeah, so that those are the recipes again. A
Mhm.
couple other things I was going to say about it is, so I've talked about these sauces. Couple of the other things I was going to say. So of course, any of them can be, served with your vegetables. So those of you folks who are here will have that as an option to try things out. But another thing you can do, if you're looking for like healthier chip options, is that, so for instance, this is still slightly processed, but compared to a potato chip or a normal tortilla chip, all you have to do is take these, you can keep them in their stack, you go whack, 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 put them on a tray, stick them either in your toaster oven if you're making a small amount, or a cookie sheet in the oven, and you've got corn chips.
Cool.
So, and again, today, for the purpose of folks here and people having different salt preferences, I did not salt them, but you can sprinkle a little bit of lime juice on them. You can do a little bit of salt, a little bit of garlic. Again, I just did them at the most plain level so you could try it. But you can hear, I mean, they're crispy. They are chips.
And you don't put oil on them.
No oil.
How do you cook them?
All you do, cookie sheet, put them on a cookie sheet,
Temperature.
375 and about 7 minutes in my oven.
Hmm.
So if you are in that convection, so a lot of times the recipes I think will say like 400. Then that's for the tortilla chips. If you want to go with like a pita chip, because again, you can go to the grocery store and buy the pita chips, and then they are loaded with a fair amount of oil. And even if they're like whole wheat, they still have a lot of oil. So around here, you can get the whole wheat pitas, and they're locally made. These ones do have a pinch of sugar at the very end, last ingredient, I'll let you know. But they're whole wheat. And again, same thing, is you can just chop them up, chop, 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 put them on a cookie sheet, stick them in the oven, and you can hear the chips. So that is a way to, if you're trying to make some healthier options than having standard tortilla chips or like the pita chips you buy in the grocery. Dehydration, where you can make it actually from taking corn, sticking it in a food processor, adding just a little bit of onion, a little bit of carrot, and dehydrating them. Those are fabulous tasting. They're great, but they're time intensive and they're energy intensive. So if you're trying to kind of strike a happy balance, that is certainly healthier than your everyday tortilla chip. And of course, too, like if you wanted to serve this with some of the seed crackers out there, that's a nice alternative. Again, they'll usually have a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar in them, but having been made with whole seeds is certainly better than just a whole bunch of highly processed wheat or other, gluten-free flours out there. So that's some healthier things you can do. And last couple of things I was going to say is, like with the spinach dip, you think of that classic dip that you use with your vegetables or your chips and stuff, but you can also, scoop out the top of your mushrooms and fill it with the mushroom dip. And you've got, beautiful, just little stuffed mushrooms. I mean, again, all these things, there's just so many things you can do with these kind of different kind of dips and sauces. So you can think beyond just the Super Bowl party, but you could also like that's also Super Bowl food. Lots of things you can do with all these recipes. So now see if we have other questions.
Where do you get your beans? Do you order online bulk or do you?
So most of the beans we buy in bulk at the East End Co-op. So sometimes some of the beans though, I will get at Patel's, especially like if I run out, but I buy them in bulk at the East End Co-op. Yeah, that's where we get it. We have our once a quarter, 10% off as members, and so we go and we load up all of our beans. Beans and greens. Yeah. Other questions? Anybody else online? Any questions?
Not yet.
All right. Well, for those of you who are here, again, I will have out some plates and some napkins. And if you want to try out the 7-layer dip or the spinach dip or the ranch dressing of the queso, I have vegetables that you can use, or you can try out some of the chips. And of course, I'll be all around for have you got other questions that you don't want to ask in front of everybody, I'll be here as well. Yeah.
I just wanna say that I have microgreens and a little bit of mushrooms or so. I usually bring those to these meetings. So-
And he has, I will say, they're both very, very tasty. So for those of you who are here and you haven't had any of them, they're really good.
So you
So,
want to copy the recipes?
and if you want a copy of the recipes, if you've already have signed up online, then those will be emailed to you beginning of next week. If you've come here today and you didn't sign up, I have a thing you can sign up and I'll make sure that you get them sent to you. Or if you have any of these recipes, I can put them over there out of the way if you want to make any photo or phone. I guess it'd be phone copies. It's gonna be photocopies. It is a photocopy, your phone. The phone copy. They're here as well. All right. Well, thank you all for coming today. All right. So I'm gonna put the recipes over there and then for y'all over here, I'll get those out for you. So just be a second.
I have these snacks.
He's not a football.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I love football.
It's something else. Like, I'll be-
I actually want this for $6 more.
Like the rock, and things like that.
Yeah.